This is the wonderful thing about photography. Every person is his own style. There's no such thing as style. You don't acquire style by going to night school. You don't acquire a style by reading a book that's published by one of the film manufacturers. That's not how you acquire style. Style is you.
Hello there. Fred Herzog had to wait until he was 75 before his photographic achievements were recognized. This German-born Canadian had worked for over 4 decades at perfecting his own aesthetic. While other color photography pioneers like Stephen Shaw, Joel Meyerowitz, and William Eggleston earned accolades, Herzog continued photographing the streets of Vancouver largely as an unknown. I'll compare his work to that of William Eggleston, who I think probably unfairly is being referred to as the father of color photography. That's unfair to the other pioneers. There's another comparison that I think is worth making, because it emphasizes how personality can impact one's status as a photographer or an artist of any type. Saul Leiter and Herzog both lived and worked for most of their lives outside the mainstream art culture. And it was only later in life, in the 2000s, that they became photographic superstars. Herzog was born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1932. And this wasn't the best time or the best place to begin a life. The Great Depression was devastating the country, and the Nazi Party was about to begin its reign. He said he lost everything he owned and valued during the war, and both his parents died before he was 15. For a while he was taken in by relatives. This wasn't easy and he wasn't well treated, but when his uncle died, he inherited a large folding plate camera, which he traded for a more manageable Kodak Retina. Because he had seen a picture of Vancouver in one of his school textbooks, he decided to emigrate to Canada.
And I found a book. It was a slim German book, and it says how to take pictures. And I read that, and then I got some magazines which had pictures in them. And it didn't take long, and I was totally captivated. As soon as I had a camera, I started photographing. And my high school book was a picture of Vancouver. And I thought that would be the city I'm going to go to, and so I did.
He arrived by boat in Montreal and had to hustle to survive. At one stage, he even had to pawn his coin collection and his enlarger. Eventually, he made his way to Vancouver, where he met a South African photographer who helped him get on his feet and introduced him to the field of medical photography. This work became his bread and butter, and when he was offered a permanent position at the St. Paul's Hospital, he began to build a more stable life. Right from the outset, he was fascinated by the culture and general vibe of the city. The Canadian way of life was vastly different from what he had experienced in Europe.
If you grow up in any city, you consider it average and ordinary. But if you come from Germany to Vancouver, you see something that a Canadian does not see. Actually, what I saw was exotic. It's almost as if I was a reporter and I want to tell the people back home what it looks like here.
He was interested in observing the reality of his everyday experience. So one can partially describe him as a street or documentary photographer. But if this was the limit of his achievement, his pictures would never have been regarded as being so significant. Beyond merely documenting, he was developing a distinct visual aesthetic. His pictures aren't merely factual records. He's looking far beyond the structural elements that appear within his frame. I think it's worth delving a little deeper here to uncover what he was after, because it highlights how a photographer can broaden their engagement with a subject. Let's say one finds something or some idea interesting. As a beginner photographer, one might frame the picture nicely, click the shutter and move on. But as one develops one's practice, one incrementally adds layers of complexity. This is what Herzog was doing. His pictures inform us about what he saw, but they gained long-term significance because he was bringing an aesthetic and a sense of self to the picture-making process.
Street photography is to show the realism of the street. I want the real thing. Nothing interests me as much as everyday reality. What you bring to the picture is everything you are, everything you have learned. I'm an eclectic photographer, and that has to do with the breadth of my being, my interests, my intellect, my friends.
He was engaging with color palettes, textures, and creating rhythms between the elements within his frame. He was particularly drawn to the red hues, so many of his images are dominated by the interplay between the reds and orange details. Shooting on Kodachrome also meant that the warmer tones would, as they say, pop. He was also hyper-aware of gesture and how various elements play off each other.
Body language includes dress. Body language includes hairstyles. Body language includes forms of authority, like I have a picture of a lady holding a cigarette. And she holds the cigarette, and her family is also there. The way she holds the cigarette is, I'm in charge. And when I say, let's go, we move. And that kind of body language can be expressed in photographs. And I was very happy when I could do that.
Look at this shot. It's a very simple scene, but the curve of the string tied to the balloon is what creates a poetic gesture. The boy's posture accentuates the movement, and the telephone pole and its shadow replicate the balloon's vertical drift. The scattered presence of the color green also anchors the scene in a state of permanence. He's transformed a simple juxtaposition into an image that one can live with for a long time and respond to on an emotional level. Looking back now at his life's work, it's hard not to respond on a nostalgic level. We become aware of a lost era. The people that he captured appear innocent and optimistic. One doesn't get a feeling of isolation or edginess that one associates with life in present-day big cities. For Herzog, Vancouver was an energetic and exciting place to be, and he saw the neon signs as indicators of this confidence and optimism. His use of Kodachrome also adds to how we respond to his pictures. The muted tones induce a feeling of dreamy romance. His choice of film stock wasn't altogether helpful to his career. It significantly impacted his profile as a photographer. Because it was expensive and difficult to develop the film, he would restrict himself to about 2 rolls per week. This meant that he usually could only take 1 frame of each subject. Kodachrome was not a very forgiving film, so he had to be very precise. The technology for printing from Kodachrome wasn't readily available or of a high standard. The conventional approach was Cibochrome prints, but this process was expensive and was also known for being inconsistent. Often the prints were too contrasty or oversaturated. It was only in the 2000s, when digitization became commonplace, that he was able to begin producing inkjet prints. Digitally, he was able to clean up his old transparencies, control the colors, and replicate the subtle fusion of tones. It might be useful at this stage to make a comparison between the color photography of Herzog and William Eggleston. Herzog was born 7 years before Eggleston, but their early lives were radically different. While Herzog was battling to stay alive and establish a home, Eggleston grew up with affluent parents and lived on his family's former cotton plantation in the Mississippi Delta. Photography for him was a passion, and he never experienced the pressure of needing to make a living. While Herzog was seeking out moments of connection with his new home, Vancouver, Eggleston was developing a neutral aesthetic of everyday life in the American South. His images reflect a detachment, but also an almost decadent pleasure in rediscovering the ordinary. For Herzog, it was the opposite. His new home always appeared extraordinary to him. After John Sikowski curated the 1976 Guide exhibition at MoMA, Eggleston's dye transfer prints became seen as individual art objects that were observed within the museum context. At the same time, Herzog was presenting slideshows to small groups of friends and colleagues, and couldn't afford to make prints of his own work.
I had a projector and I had a screen, and from around 1960 on, I gave slideshows at various places, and many architects and artists and just lovers of art went there, and those slideshows were very much appreciated because the people who saw them simply didn't think that photography could produce art like that, but it did.
Even though these two photographers came from very different worlds and were driven to photograph for distinct reasons, they both, in their own ways, were committed to responding photographically to a greater artistic calling. Saul Leiter and Herzog could both be described as outsiders, and they chose to work in color when it was seen as unfashionable in serious photographic circles. Leiter grew up in a deeply religious Jewish household in Pittsburgh and was expected to become a rabbi. Instead, he moved to New York to become an artist, and this rupture shaped his way of being, a sense of detachment. Herzog was an immigrant. He was culturally displaced, and he used his photographic practice to explore and build connection with his new home. Both men were modest, private characters, so they never pushed themselves or their work into the center stage. While Herzog supported himself with his medical photography, Leiter was able to get enough fashion work to allow him to continue producing his New York street photographs. The images produced by both men are patiently observed, and they exude a stillness or calm. They never made an attempt to produce grand gestures or make avant-garde statements. Geography was essential to both photographers. Herzog was observing the changing port city of Vancouver, while Leiter saw the New York streets as a source for his abstractions. Even though their styles were very different, looking now at their life's work, one gets the sense that they were both quietly creating an artistic vision of the cities in which they lived. In the 2000s, technology finally caught up with Herzog's way of working. With digitization, he was able to present his work to a wider audience. A major retrospective at the Vancouver Art Gallery in 2007 changed everything for him.
I found photography, and then perhaps photography found me, but that came in the last 10 years, you know. Until I was 75, I was unknown. It's only now that all of a sudden my stuff is the right stuff. So we've had instant attention, so I'm getting kind of used to having attention. And my life has been fairly dry in the past. I've not been well known, and I kind of got used to that. So suddenly being well known, I don't know whether that is really what I need the most.
His audience was transformed from small groups watching his slideshows in his living room to gallery exhibitions around the world. Suddenly his work was being compared with that of William Eggleston and Stephen Shaw, and he was awarded the Ordained Prize for Lifetime Achievement in the Visual Arts. Through his will to elevate his photographic hobby into an art form, he produced a body of work that, at times, echoes the subtle observations of Edward Hopper or Norman Rockwell. Thanks for staying with me. I hope you enjoyed that work, and I'll see you next time.
You want to do something for which you are known to be an expert. I wanted that.